it's Gwen. I'm here to do my January wrap-up. I read a crap ton in January, so let's go ahead and jump right in. The first book I actually read at the end of December in 2015, and that was Confess by Colleen Hoover. I do already have a review of sorts on my channel of this, so I will link that for you. It tells the story of Auburn as she thinks her life is in shambles, but then she, meets Owen Gentry, who is an artist in a Dallas, studio. She's walking by, she ends up getting a job from him, and it's Colleen Hoover, so it's a new adult romance, and it's very interesting. I enjoyed it. I loved the art aspect, and I highly recommend you pick it up if you love Colleen Hoover stories. The first book that I picked up in 2016 is Hurt Go Happy by Jenny Rorby. This tells the story of a young girl who is deaf, and her family doesn't want her to learn American Sign Language because they consider being deaf a disability. They just want her to read lips. But one day she goes out in search of like some mushrooms or something like that, and she runs into her neighbor who has a chimpanzee, and the chimpanzee knows American Sign Language. So through the chimpanzee and her neighbor, she starts learning sign language, and her life kind of blossoms. But it more tells the story of the friendship between the main character and the chimpanzee, and their kind of life and journey together, and throughout life. So it was very interesting. It wasn't exactly what I really was looking for. I was looking more for the American Sign Language aspect of the story, and I got more of the animal story. I ended up rating this 3 stars, and if you're really into like chimpanzees or American Sign Language, I would pick it up. It's a quick read. I was really excited to pick up Lumberjanes Volume 1 for my library, but then I was completely disappointed because I ended up DNFing this. I loved the art, but just the story itself was clunky, and it wasn't fun or interesting to read. I only read like the first couple of pages, and it doesn't take that long to read a graphic novel, so when you DNF a graphic novel, you know something isn't right. I DNF'd A Handmaidens Tale by Margaret Atwood. This is something that my mom told me about after I was talking to her about The Giver. She recommended this, and she didn't remember the entire book, but she remembered certain aspects of it, and it reminded her of The Giver. Unfortunately, when I picked this up, the writing just really kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I wasn't really enjoying it. I picked up The Winter's Curse by Marie Rotowski, and I absolutely loved this book. It is about a general's daughter who is in the, like downtown one day, and she ends up purchasing a slave, and the slave comes back to her house, and she can tell like something's different about him, and he kind of has like his own thing going on, but there's a lot of political intrigue, and there's just this world where it's like the higher class and the slave class, and it's very interesting. The characters are really strong, and I do want to do a full trilogy review when I have completed the trilogy, but I highly recommend this trilogy. It's fantasy, it's well written, the characters are strong, and I fell in love with this book, you guys. I rated it 4 stars. I picked up Remember Me by Sophie Kinsella. I picked this up because I really enjoyed Finding Audrey by Sophie Kinsella, and I wanted to read some of her other books and see if I would enjoy them as well. This is a contemporary romance story about a girl that goes out with her girlfriends one night, and they're like the best of friends. So they go out to this like karaoke club bar thing, and then as they're hailing a cab, she's sitting there like, I didn't get a raise, and this is going wrong, and my relationship sucks, and just everything. And then the next thing you know, she's waking up in a hospital, and 3 years have passed, and she's like, what's going on? So she's trying to like navigate her way through the last 3 years of her life and figure out how she ended up where she did, but she's completely different than when she remembers herself from. She's, she looks different, she acts different, her life is different, she's not friends with her best friends anymore, she's married to this billionaire, and she's like, how did I get here? So while she's navigating her life, she's kind of coming to realize that like maybe she made some wrong turns, and she's trying to see if she can make those right. This is really cute. I gave it 4 stars. City of Bones, the first book in the Mortal Instrument series by Cassandra Clare. I loved this book. I was gonna rate it 4 stars, but I was like, you know what? No, the writing was on point. Everything was well explained. It wasn't an information dump. So much happened. It's such a chunky book, and like it was just kind of non-stop. This tells the story of Clary. He doesn't realize that she is a shadow hunter. Her mom has been withholding, like suppressing her memories, and now she's all alone. Her father died when she was young, and now her mother is missing because things heartstrings, and this is just so good. And the TV show is doing it such a disservice, just like the movie did. At least the movie kind of stayed with the plot. It was just kind of crappily done. From what I remember, because it's been forever. But I was going to unhaul this, and I'm so glad that I didn't, like so long ago. I just kept it around for some reason. I loved it. Everything was well explained. The characters and the relationships between the characters, so strong, and I'm definitely going to continue in the series, and I just really want the box set at this point. I rated City of Bones 5 stars. I actually picked up one of the books from these are the 10 books I want to read in 2016. That was Speak by Laurie Anderson, and I loved it, you guys. This tells a story of, I forget her name, Melinda, who is going into her first year in high school, but she's kind of an outcast now, and everybody hates her, including some of her best friends. And the reason why is kind of like unknown at the beginning. The only thing that you really know is that there was this end of the year summer party, and Melinda ended up calling the cops, and now because she called the cops, everybody hates her. But there was a good reason why she called the cops, and it's kind of like the reveal of what happened at this party, and it really pulls at your heartstrings. It's a very important story, and it's about finding your voice after something that happens to you personally that could completely and does change your life. And I just thought it was well written, the characters were interesting, and it was an important story to be told, especially for teen girls. I highly recommend it to anybody. Because I loved it absolutely so much, I picked up Wintergirls by Laurie Anderson next, and again, well written, characters were amazing, but this one has triggers for cutting and for eating disorders. If you have an eating disorder, I would not recommend this book at all. If you have suffered from an eating disorder, I wouldn't recommend this book if you're scared that it's going to trigger you, because it most likely will. It's very real. It's almost like a real account. This tells the story of two best friends that vow that they're going to be the skinniest girls, and one of them ends up dying, and you're trying to figure out, like, how did she die, what happened, and the other one is kind of struggling with her eating disorder, and she's being flip-flopped between her mother's house and her father's house, and she's just navigating her life. Her best friend's kind of haunting her in a way, and it's really touching, and the writing, and I mean, I cried, you guys. It's hard. It's hard to read. It's not one of those books that you're like, there's a mystery or something. I mean, it's well written, it's important, and I can't say enough about this. It's very, it's hard, but you need to read it. I rated Speak 4 stars, and I rated Wintergirls 5 stars, and I definitely want to read more from this author because I enjoyed these both immensely. Ripsat round 7 started, and I do have vlogs, and I have a wrap-up of all of the things Ripsat round 7. Interested in my full wrap-up of these books, including Etiquette and Espionage, which I gave 2 stars. It's a steampunk kind of finishing school that trains assassins book. The Girl at Midnight ended up DNFing, and I just didn't like it. It was fantasy. There were some beings that weren't well described, and the world seemed weird, and I just wasn't into it. I do have this autographed copy. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but yes, I'm definitely DNFing it. Then I read 1,000 Nights, which is another 1001 Nights retelling, and this one is quite different from The Wrath of the Dawn. I really enjoyed the different aspect of it. It took me a little bit to get into, but I rated it 3 stars because I did end up enjoying the story. Then I finished up The Winter's Crime, which is the second book in the Winter's trilogy, and I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I will have a full review of the trilogy once I have read the third and final book, but it continues the story, and it's really good, really well written. Characters are deep, new characters are introduced, you're in a new location. Absolutely amazing. Then I read The Leaving Season by Kat Jordan, which is an ARC copy that I was sent from the publisher, and I'm really glad that they sent me this book, and I will be doing a full review of it. I gave it 4 stars. It tells the story of a girl whose boyfriend is going away at the end, like he's taking like a gap year, and he's going away to South America to he wants to be a doctor, so he's going there to help at the little medical facilities, but then a tragic accident happens and out of Honduras, and there's this attack on the village, and the village that he was at, and so she's kind of left behind, and she ends up bonding with her boyfriend's best friend, and it's just really good. And it's contemporary romance, and it has a lot of expected elements, but it's not really about that. It's kind of about, you know, finding yourself and being okay with who you are. So I really enjoy that, and there will be a full review closer to release date. And then the last book that I read for Rebsat was The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torrey. And oh my God, you guys, it was so good. It's an erotic thriller about a girl who has secluded herself in her apartment for the last 3 years because she has fantasies about killing people. And her job is, she's a webcam girl. And if you don't know what a webcam girl is, it's basically a girl or a woman that performs on the internet. And she, of course, is she has these clients that are these guys, and they're really weird. And one client, like, particularly sticks out to her because he always wants her to be this young girl, Anna, which is kind of breaking the rules, but she kind of does it, and then she just realizes like something's wrong. She's starting to feel like Anna is a real girl out there and that maybe she's in danger, but how is she supposed to save this girl if she can never leave her apartment? So it's very interesting. It's not for everybody, but the writing is really intriguing. It's super fast paced, and I really loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I do plan on doing a full review on my channel, so keep your eyes out for that. And then the last book that I read this month was The Girl of Fire and Thorns by Ray Carson. This is the first book in the trilogy. And oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I got this book. I had recently got it off of bookmooch.com. That's where I'm getting a couple of these books. And I'm not doing hauls anymore, so I'm not really showing you like when I'm getting books. I'm just talking to you about the books. And oh my gosh, this book is excellent. 5 stars. It's fantasy, which I know you're probably shocked because I don't read a lot of fantasy. But this one tells the story of a world where every 100 years God chooses someone for greatness. And in doing so, he implants a godstone in their navel. And it kind of gives them, the bearer, like a sense of dread, or like when something good's happening, and if they're praying, it's like humming, and it sounds really weird, but it's written in a really excellent way that it doesn't seem weird at all. But in this story, Alyssa is the bearer of the Godstone, and she is 16 now, and she's being married off to this king in this country whose country is in turmoil. And she's confused because she's the youngest of 2 princesses, and she's like, my older sister is like way more qualified for this, but for some reason she's married off, and she goes to this palace, and she's like, I don't know anything about running a country, I don't know anything about being a wife, but she does know food and pastries and honey coconut scones, which I am gonna make because there's a recipe in this book. So she goes to this palace with her new husband, and then when they get there, he tells her, don't tell anybody we're married. It's a secret. Like, let's be friends. And what I like about this book is that you know that there's going to be a lot happening. You know there's going to be a lot happening in this story, but there are 2 points in this book where the rug is completely pulled from under your feet, and the story does a 180. And then just when you become comfortable with that, it happens again. And so there are just shocking things that happen in this book that aren't done for shock value, and I really loved it. I loved the characters, I loved the world, I loved the twists and turns, I love the political aspect. Just everything about this was amazing. It has zoomed to the top of one of my favorite books of all time, and I can't wait to continue in the trilogy. If you haven't picked this one up yet, what are you doing? Do it. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. That was my January wrap up. I know it was quite long, but make sure to check the description box for links to reviews that I have written or videos that I have posted. I can't believe I got all of these books off of my TBR shelf, and now they can go to my red shelf. And I had a great reading month, and I hope February brings about great things as well. Let me know what your favorite book of January was, and if you've read any of these books and loved them, let's gush about them, because I need more people to talk to about these awesome books. And keep an eye out for the reviews that I told you that will be coming, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!